So yesterday we took something that looked like this, vertex form, and we changed it into this. Today, we're going to pretty much be spending the whole time learning how to take this, change it into that. That takes some time. Okay. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So how to change standard form into vertex form. So why do we want to do that? This is a useful skill for a variety of future math topics, so I'll just leave it at that. But another interesting thing is this is where, I don't know if you guys might, you guys probably remember the word quadratic formula. Well, the quadratic formula comes from this process, actually. So it's a good thing to know. So let's begin here. So before we begin doing that, I got to lay the foundation for some skills that we're going to be employing to accomplish this task. And so here's our first thing we need to know. You guys know what a perfect square trinomial is? A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial that factors into two identical binomial factors. So, for instance, x squared plus 6x plus 9. If you factor that, you could use the box method if you want to, but today we're actually not going to use the box method. I'm going to eventually give you guys a shortcut. Remember, these should add up to make the middle number there. So after you factor it, it turns out you get the same thing twice. Okay? And so you can write it as a square, and that's why you call it a perfect square trinomial. All right? So here's some useful facts that we're going to be using today in light of that. First of all, if you take half of the middle number and square it, you get the last one. Now this is only something that applies to perfect square trinomials. So what's half of 6? 3. Now square it, meaning multiply it by itself. What do you get? That's how all perfect square trinomials are. Half the middle number squared will give you the last number. They always work out that way. You can kind of see why that is. If you take half the middle number, that's where these 3's are coming from. And then when you multiply them together, that's where the last number comes from. So with a perfect square trinomial, half the middle number squared will always give you the last number. So for instance, x squared plus 8x. Does anybody know what would have to go there? 16. Half the middle number is 4. Multiply that by itself, you get 16. Now, you don't have to have a 16 there, but if you want it to be a perfect square trinomial, you do. All right. So, so for our notes, here's how I'd have you guys write that. I would write the word half here. Half of 6 is 3. And then I'm going to say square here. Square. All right. So that's what I would have on your note paper. So with a perfect square trinomial, half the middle number squared always gives you the last number. That's how they're set up. Now, another thing about these guys, perfect square trinomials, is when you factor them, you know how they always come out to be the same thing twice. Well, instead of using the box method to factor it, we have a pretty nice little shortcut for these that always works. So instead of using the box method for a perfect square trinomial, we can do something that's a little bit quicker. It will always have these things there, the x with parentheses and the square. The only thing that we're ever going to have to figure out is this number right here. That number is always going to be half of the middle number. So half of 6 is 3. So that's how you could do that. So here's another example for you. Suppose, let's go back to this guy. Remember this? If I wanted to factor this, yes, I could use the box method, but since I know this is a perfect square trinomial, I know it's going to look like that, and all I need to do is figure out what goes there. It's half the middle number. I'm done. So it's a lot quicker than the box method. But once again, that only works for perfect square trinomials. So here's our second interesting fact. When you factor a perfect square trinomial, it always looks like, I don't know if I have a thing here or not. It always looks like that, and then this will always be half the middle. That number that goes there will always be half of the middle. So, we know what a perfect square trinomial is. It's a trinomial that when you factor it, gives you two identical binomials, and so you can write it as a square. But more interestingly, two interesting facts we're going to use today. You could tell it's a perfect square trinomial if you take half the middle number and square it. Also, when you factor it, it'll always look like this, where half the middle number goes there. Okay, so we'll be using those two facts today. All right. So, yes.
Isn't this like in perfect square, it would square root the last number?
Yeah, so you could square root the last number to get the middle number. The only problem with that is you won't know if it's a positive or a negative when you square root it. So if you start with the middle number, you'll always get the right thing, but that is true. All right. Okay, so another vocabulary word here for you guys, completing the square. Completing the square means when you add a number to a trinomial to make it become a perfect square. All right, so that's what we're going to do here, is I'm going to give you guys a trinomial, and we're going to have to add a number to make it become a perfect square trinomial. All right, we've already done one, but we'll do it again. So here we go. X squared plus 18x plus blank. See if you can find the blank. All right. So some of you guys might be a little confused, so I'll walk you through it real quick here. You take half the middle number. What's that? You don't have to write the word half here, but I will just for teaching purposes. You take half the middle number is 9, and then you're going to square it. That means multiply it by itself or raise it to the second power. What's that? And that's what goes there. That makes it a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So if you got that, that's good. But I don't want to stop there. I want to factor it now. I want to factor it. So as I said, when you factor these, they always look the same. They're always going to have this. The only thing that won't always be the same is the number that you decide to put here. That number will always be whatever half the middle was. So it's 9. Here's my final answer. Okay? So that's that. So we completed the square. We made it a perfect square trinomial. And then we used our shortcut for perfect squares to factor it. Let's do another one. This time I'm going to let you guys walk me through it a little bit. Oh, Mr. Bailey. I just gave you the answer. I can't use that one now. Mr. Bailey. But I think I want it to be a minus here. That does create a little bit of a difference. Pardon the pun. Get a difference. Subtraction. All right. So, Alonzo, to find this number here, the first thing I do is, okay, and that would be, good. And I'm going to say specifically negative 10, but yes. All right. Now I'm going to ask Amaya, now what? Good. You're going to square it. And so what goes up here? 100. All right, now we're going to factor it. See if you guys can write what it would look like factored. All right, Cal, you got it? What you got? Very good. You guys notice how, so it's always going to be x blank parentheses squared. The blank is half the middle, which is negative 10. Notice it's minus because this was minus. Okay? All right, I'm going to do one more, but this time I'll let you guys do it completely from beginning to end all on your own there. So here we go. X squared minus 2x. I want you to find the blank, and then I want you to write it in factored form. Okay. So, Shamani, what did you get for here? Okay. Jedrick, what did you get for here? Really? Okay. Matt, did you get some time? Yeah? Okay. So you take half of the middle number, which is negative 1, and then you square it, and that's just 1. All right, so Cynthia, what did you get for the last step here? Huh? And then squared, right? All right. Well, I got a lot of I don't knows on that one, so I think we better practice it again. All right. Try again. All right. Let's see. Aaliyah, what'd you get right here? Good, thank you. All right, and then Badal, what'd you get here? Good, so it's just going to be a negative 6 here. All right, so we have our completed square here. Now this is just a skill that we're going to be using for today. I'll remind you of what our main objective is, but this is just one of the steps that we have to do it. Yeah. Okay, good question. So when you take half of 6 or 12, you get negative 6, right? And then when you square it, you're going to square the 6, and negative times negative 6, two negatives make a positive. So this number here will always be a positive, because whether this is positive or negative, when you square it, it always goes to positive. Now this one down here, that one can be positive or negative, because you're just taking half the middle number for that one. But when you square something, always positive. All right, so now let's review our objective for today, you guys. Our objective for today was to change something from standard form into vertex form. Now, why did we just go through that process of completing the square? Well, do you guys see that guy right there? X minus h squared. If I want to get this to become this, we're going to have to do some completing the square to get that there. So that's where that comes from. And that's why we're going to need that step. Now, just so you guys know, these problems take a while. They have multiple steps. It's all just multiplication and addition. I'd say the hardest thing about it is remembering the order of the steps, but that's about it. But there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them steps to get from here to here. Okay, there's about 6 steps. All right. I still don't think they're as bad as our word problems we did the other day, so that's good news. All right, so, I guess I didn't need it. All right, so here we go. Let's begin. This is our first one. Okay, now I'm going to write some words for each step, and I would highly encourage you guys to do that too, because if you're just showing the math, when you look back at your notes on the day of the test, it probably won't be helpful. You're going to want to see what you were doing with a written sentence next to it. You're only going to need to do that once, though. So long as you have it once on your paper, you're good. But I would write down the words for the first problem at least. All right, so step 1. I'm going to write this, actually, before I write my steps, I'm going to write this at the top, and you guys should do this too. I'm writing this at the top because in my steps, I'm going to talk about letters like A, B, C, H, and K. And if you don't have that up at the top, you might forget what I'm referring to when I say that. So, what letter is this 10, you guys? That's the C value. So step 1 is to move the C to the other side. Move the C to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides of this equation. That way it's no longer on this side, but now it's on the other side of the equation. Why did I do that? Well, we want to complete the square. So that number that's there is probably not the right one, so I'm just going to get it out of the way, because we have to create a number that will work. All right. Step 2, you guys may notice that on all of our completing the square problems, we never had a number in the front of the x squared like that. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. Is I'm going to get that out of there. So I'm going to factor out the a. Factor out the a. Factor out a. So my a is 3. So I'm going to take that out like this. Now, if I divide this by 3, what would be left there? 1x squared. And I don't need to write the 1. I'm just going to put x squared, but it is 1x squared. And if I divide this by 3, what will I have left there? Minus 2x. All right? So I got 2 numbers out of the way that are not part of the perfect square trinomial that I want to create. I got rid of the 10. I got rid of the a. Now I want to complete the square with this piece. Okay? So that's going to be my next step. I want to complete the square. Complete the square. And if I want to complete the square here, what number will I put there? Plus Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Squared is 1. So I completed the square. It's just what we did in the last set, right? Completed the square. Okay. This next step is, I'm going to call this, I'm going to have to write on the side, kind of sideways here, but I'm going to need this space. But fix the balance. Fix the balance. So what do I mean by that? We have an equation, right? Okay, so I have a question there. So question was, how did I get 1? You take half the middle number and then you square it. Plus 1? That one? You take half the middle number and square it. It's the same thing. All right, so now you got to fix the balance. I have an equation. I've got this side equal to this side, but I just added a number. What if you take a balanced scale and you add something to one side but not the other? What happens? It's not balanced anymore. So I need to fix the balance. I need to fix the balance. Now, you guys might think, well, Mr. Bailey, you added 1 on this side, so just add 1 over here. But I didn't add 1 to this side. It looks like I added 1. But everything in parentheses here is being multiplied by 3. So by putting a 1 in here, I actually added how much to this side? 3. So here's how you should show your work here. You're going to take your A, you're going to multiply it times that number. So let's put multiply. And then whatever that is, 3 times 1 is 3. That's how much we really added to the left side. So now we need to add that over here. Fix the balance. Now my equation's balanced again. Now my equation is balanced again. All right, next, I'm going to factor this using our little shortcut that we learned. So it's always going to look like this. What's the middle number? Or sorry, what's this number going to be? Negative 1. And on this side, we could just put these two numbers here together, in the negative 10 and the 3. So for this step, I'm just going to say factor and add. So I factored on the left side, and on the right side, I just combined. Yes, nice job. Because you're keeping, so Denise is keeping in mind what we're really trying to do here. I'm trying to get vertex form. You guys see how we're almost there? It almost looks like this thing up here on the top. And so the last step is to take this number here and add it to the other side. What letter do you think that is? That's the K value. So the last step is to move the K. So I'm going to add K on both sides. And at that point, we should be done. Now, I want you to understand, I did not change the equation. I just changed the way it looked. I did not change the equation. It's the same quadratic. If you were to go on Desmos and graph this function and graph this one, you would only see one graph because they're literally the same thing. It's just I changed the way it looked. Okay? Why do we go through this horrific process? I gave you 2 reasons at the beginning. One is we're going to use it a few times this year. Another reason why is because this is actually where the quadratic formula comes from, a really useful formula we're going to use later on in the year. So hopefully you guys wrote down those verbal steps because those are going to be helpful for the next few problems that we're going to do. We're going to do a guided practice and a student practice, and that'll close us out for the day. But there it is. So it's changing standard form into vertex form. All right, so this is a guided practice. That means I'm going to let you guys do each step one at a time as we go. So I want you guys to do the first step. Look at your notes. The last problem we just did. Look at the words you wrote down and do the first step. And then I'll ask you what you got in just a second. Okay, so check your answers with a neighbor. I'm going to ask you in just a second what you got there. All right, so David, what is the first step? Very good. First step is to add 3 on both sides. Okay, so go ahead and, oh, it's not 8, it's 3. All right, go ahead and do step 2, please. Now, I want to warn you here. On step 2, you're going to be factoring out the -2. So you're dividing by a negative. Keep that in mind. When you divide by a negative, signs change. So factor out your A there, and we'll ask you what you got. So Adriana, what did you get? We got the first step, adding 3 on both sides, so we're on the second step. Not yet. Not yet. No, that's not the one, but we are going to get to that, but not yet. Not that one. Adrian, what did you get for step 2? Okay, that's 2 I don't knows. That means we're going to have more practice, you guys. Make sure you talk to people if you're lost. All right, so let's try another one here. Edwin, what's the next step? What do I write next?
You have to write -2 parentheses x squared plus 4x.
That's what your step 2 should have looked like. We're taking a -2 out of both of those. And so that leaves me, -2 divided by -2 leaves me with a +1, but you don't need to write the 1. And then -8 divided by -2 leaves me with a +4. Okay? Now, maybe that's what you were trying to say, because I do see not the same number that you got, but what you were saying sounded to me like the completing a square step. So we're not ready to complete the square. But let's do it. Let's go ahead and do step 3 now. Step 3. Yeah. Let me give him a little more time, but yeah. All right, so I'm going to ask Adriana, go ahead and tell us what do I write? -2. Uh-huh. I'm going to say plus 4x, but keep going. Uh-huh. Okay. So it's plus because when we took that -2 in the beginning, it changes that to a positive. Anyway, where does that come from? You take half the middle number, which is 2, and then you square it, which is 4. So you get 4 there. All right, go ahead and do the next step. What step are we on? 1, 2, 3. So now we're on the 4th. So let's do the 4th step. What comes after completing the square? No, it was rhetorical, but you're right. So Shakir, what's the 4th step? Okay. Kimaya, what's the 4th step? Okay. Subtract 2? You're close. You're close, yeah. No? No, but yeah. Okay. So look, if you guys look at the first example I gave you, you're right. It's fix the balance. So now when you want to fix the balance, you take this number, you multiply it by 4. What's 4 times -2? And you're going to add that over here. So you said -2, but it's actually -8 goes over there. So you were close, but it is fixing the balance. Fixing the balance is our step there. All right. Go ahead and do step 5. On step 5, you're going to do something on this side, and you're going to do something else on this side. So there's 2 things to do in step 5. Look at the example we had. Look at the step that comes after fix the balance. See if you can figure out what we're supposed to do there. Okay, so Miles, what are the words for the 5th step? Yeah, just like the phrase that I wrote on the side. Okay. That's the 6th step. We're not ready for that one yet, but that is one of our steps. But go ahead, Aaliyah. What do you think? Okay. Let me ask Stephen. Stephen, what do we do on the 5th step? What do the words say for that? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Factor and add. So we want to factor and add. All right. So we're back to Denise, actually. I just pulled your card, so you get to help me. So what does that look like then, Denise? Maybe that's what you meant, Miles, when you said -5. So that's there. Okay. Did you? So now this is the other side. So this is the side this is the side you factor. For this one, you're always going to have this much of it. No. So the green part will always be there. So we have to figure out what number goes here, though. And how do we get that is your question. You take half of the middle number. So it's 2. All right. I'm going to ask Alondra, what's the last step? Add 5. Okay. So add 5 on both sides. Okay, we're done. That's vertex form. All right, so the one thing I want to draw your guys' attention to here is this step. If I were a student taking notes, I'd put a little star there and say, when taking a negative out, when taking out a negative, the signs will change. Okay, so we're dividing out a -2. That caused both of these signs to change to positives down here. So when you're dividing out a -a, that causes the signs to change. So that's a nice little note to write. Now I believe there's a student practice. That means you're going to do this one on your own without me walking you through it step by step. So I want you to do the whole thing on your own. And I think that'll be it for today. That's our last part, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, yeah, so go ahead and do student practice, and then we'll be good. Yeah? Sorry. It says when taking out a negative, signs change. When taking out a negative, signs change. All right, while you guys are working, I'm going to come around and check notes, but we will go over this, so don't pack up or nothing. Knock out example 2. There. This is actually going to matter in final answer. This doesn't change.
Not only that, but taking out. So it's not actually the right.
Because I figured out what how to do it like last second.
But
Yesterday I figured out so how atomic radius is
but look,
like really easy to figure out.
this is now this is the step we're going to create. I think you were here for that, right? Now this is okay, but yeah. So
It's right.
This is all great. So now you're just curious about this step. So on this step here, it's always going to look the same. Here, square. The only thing you have to figure out is what is half that number. I did. I did right. Four? No. Yeah.
That's your problem.
You already done with it, or do you want to? Are you done using this?
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, can you put
Okay.
I think that's all.
No. I'll be right there along.
Divide four. Are you watching on the video? Oh. Alright.
Yeah, I think the paper's up there on the desk. And Keanu, you know to upload them into the classroom. Huh?
I didn't have internet to upload them yesterday, but when I had not uploaded that.
I think you guys didn't have to upload it yesterday. Because I just looked at it and see. So you, oh, okay, then I'll get it. All right. All right, guys. So I'll put the final answer up here, and then if you want to check the steps, I'll also put that up here.
You want to factor it out, right? You do the box, opening box, like and half of this, half of it. You only have to good half of
All right, guys, that's it.